So, Governor Ridge, your book is taking the media and the press and the public by storm. One of the main things out of the book that a lot of people have been focusing on, and I know you've been asked about this many times before in the last couple of days, is you state in the book that you were pressured by Donald Rumsfeld and John Ashcroft 4 days before the election to raise the terror alert level. Could you state what actually happened during that period of time?
Thank you, Joe. I want to be very, very clear. Other people say that I say in the book that I was pressured. But a careful reading of the book, I would hope you would conclude that admittedly there is a passage there that if you really have an imagination, you may conclude that that's what it says. It really just calls in my mind a bigger issue that I dealt with as secretary. And I'm not going to second guess the people who interpret it that way. They're entitled to that interpretation. But one of the biggest challenges we had when I was secretary is keeping the public informed and keeping the security people with whom we dealt at the federal, state, local, and within the private sector informed of the need to add additional measures of security. I can recall going out on several occasions with Attorney General Ashcroft, FBI Director Mueller, and we'd go out and before we had the threat warning system say to America, we believe that the threat tomorrow is greater than the threat today of terrorist attack. Be alert, be aware. The media would start scratching their heads. The public would be wondering, what are they talking about? What are we supposed to do? We would conclude the press conference. After one of those press conferences, I turned to a valued and trusted aide and said, we got to do something about this. And as a result was the color-coded Homeland Advisory Threat Advisory System. Should it have been colors, numbers, alphabet? I don't know, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, blue, yellow, orange, red. That's not as important as what those letters, alphabets, or colors signaled. Every one was a signal that a pre-described level of security should be built. Pre-described, pre-arranged, specific. If we go up, you need to do these additional things. So that was the advisory system. But before that was used, and this is where all the confusion exists, Joe, I said it when I was secretary, I've said it on national broadcast, I try to explain it in the book. Nobody, not the President nor the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security could unilaterally raise the threat level. No one could be pressured to raise the threat level. The discussion goes like this. If you had a YouTube video of some of these discussions, you would either see some of the President's Homeland Security cabinet around his advisor. It was either General John Gordon that succeeded me or Frank Townsend that succeeded the general. And the Secretaries of State, Defense, the Attorney General, the FBI Director, CIA Director, and several others. We would discuss the intelligence that merited the collective review to determine if there was a consensus to raise a threat level. Nobody automatically raised it. Nobody was ever threatened. I was never pressured. Did we disagree from time to time? Yes. The passage in the book refers to the weekend before the presidential election. Dramatic in that it was the weekend before the presidential election. Not any different than multiple other occasions when all of those parties were called together to decide whether we needed to raise the threat level and add pre-described levels of security in America. This was a bin Laden tape. When anything particular, bin Laden and Zawahiri kept sending tapes over the time I was in Washington. They don't like America. They don't care for our value system. A bin Laden tape was not news. Was there more to it? This was also, in addition to the drama associated with the weekend before, the same year, a couple months after, a terrorist event in Spain altered the outcome of that election. And so a lot of things going on, but no one at any time on this occasion or on any other occasions, which you don't know about because we didn't raise the threat level when we got this group together, the consensus was that it was not enough to raise the threat level. Nobody pressured anybody. That was the consensus. These are tough judgments, tough calls. And after, in writing my book, after it was all said and done, still wondering why some people were arguing I mean, they were not arguing, were so insistent that we go up. I mused in the book. Is it politics? Is it security? Is there something else going on here? That's a far cry from suggesting that anybody was pressured or that politics was used throughout the time I was secretary to raise the threat level. End of story.
Just briefly, how did you come to the conclusion? Why was your conclusion different 4 days before the election of not to raise the threat level, as opposed to John Ashcroft and Donald Rumsfeld wanting to raise it?
Well, I mean, that's the beauty of the system. We all have our own intelligence chiefs. We all have our own intelligence networks. We all have those who sit next to us and discuss with us the importance and the relevance and the need to use that to put America on alert. And differences of opinion, they call it inside the intelligence world competitive intelligence. You may look at a different set of facts and come to different conclusions. It's like witnesses at an auto accident. It's like Supreme Court opinions. Rarely do you get 9-0. I mean, you're allowed to look at a different situation and come up with a different conclusion. So I regret that there are some people that suggest that I'm second-guessing my colleagues. I don't regret musing at the end of my book after what I consider to be a pretty dramatic moment, wondering why some people wanted to go up. But just a moment in and of itself in relationship to Madrid and everything else. Is there something else at play here? Am I missing something? Because if I'm missing something and something goes down, you know who's culpable? Be the Secretary of Homeland Security. So I got to make sure I understand all the facts.
You also mentioned in the book that you were never invited to a national security meeting, and that it was very hard for you to meet with Donald Rumsfeld. Could you care to comment?
Well, again, if people, I mean, I do want people to read the book. I did not write that line with regard to not being invited into the National Security Council meetings as a complaint or as a criticism. During the past couple of years since I've been out, people said, were you involved in the war planning for Iraq or Afghanistan? I said, no. We were certainly involved once we knew we were going to in Iraq. I talk about something we built called Liberty Shield. But I did not feel like I was ostracized or somebody was trying to keep me away from something that I should have been involved in. That's strictly the presidential call. And frankly, I think to a certain extent the president might have said that, Tom's got a lot going on. Whenever they made a decision that affected my department, I knew about it immediately. I mean, we knew about it as soon as it was rendered, and other people in that meeting said, well, we better get the Department of Homeland Security involved in whatever dimension they want us to get involved in. So it wasn't a complaint. My relationship with Donald Rumsfeld, again, we had a good personal relationship, but he was planning going in. The reference in this book is he's ready to go into Afghanistan. He's going to commit blood and treasure after 9/11. He's got a few things on his mind. And the incident I referred to in the book is, I'm a former governor. I'm in the White House assistant to the president, and I know governors are going to have to go get the National Guard, and mayors are going to have to put police on overtime, and they're going to come back to me and say, we need money to do that. Okay, I can get it. If I were a governor, I'd have said the same thing. Now, I got the Secretary of Defense who's planning on responding full force military into Afghanistan. I mentioned to him a couple of times. The conversations were casual, but this is not a high priority, nor should have been. I went to Secretary of the Army, Tom White. We got the money, and I don't think anybody would conclude that anything happened in the Pentagon without Don Rumsfeld knowing it. So the fact that we didn't engage in conversations is not a criticism. He had other priorities. Not that they didn't want to help. I just figured out a way to do it without engaging him.
While you were Secretary of Homeland Security, how many terrorist attacks on the homeland would you say were stopped?
Oh, I think the president said several, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
Why do you think the president chose you as the first Secretary of Homeland Security?
Well, I don't know. I can conjecture in my own mind. I have been and continue to be a great friend of the president. I think he's a principled man. I've had interesting discussions about the war in Iraq, and for those individuals who suggest that there was some ulterior motive going into Iraq, the only reason the President of the United States as Commander-in-Chief went into Iraq, whether he agreed or not, is because he concluded it would make America safer long-term. End of story. Again, as far as I'm concerned. Maybe it helped that I had a pretty decent reputation in Congress. I'm a very proud Republican. I'm a partisan Republican, but I think sometimes you got to meet the other side halfway, and I stand proudly as a Republican, but I'm not sure we always have the best solutions. I think you get good ideas from both sides, and so I think I had that reputation.